Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in another video day. And yesterday, the Boston Celtics beat the Indiana Pacers in overtime 133 to 128. And I look back at this game and I really think to myself, if you're the Pacers, you have to be even though what I'm about to talk about, no matter what the circumstances are, you're going to be disappointed about this loss. But I just want to talk about what the future could have held for this Pacers team in this series if they would have won this game one, which they had this game in their hands. But stupid turnovers gave the Boston Celtics multiple chances to tie the game up when it was they were up 115 to 110 with a minute and 30 seconds left in the game. Then Boston, made a couple buckets. I believe it was at the free throw line they got the 4 points to bring it to a 1 point game, which had it 115 to 114. So there it's a 1 point game. Then Andrew Nembhard makes a clutch mid-range shot to get the game to a 3 point game, 117 to 114. And Boston is not able to hit a three. I'm trying to remember who missed a three. I believe it was Jayson Tatum missed a three. Pacers got the rebound. And the Celtics fouled Tyrese Halliburton. Now, but Boston had one foul to give, so the Pacers had to inbound the ball and get fouled. And if you make a free throw, or both free throws, you basically are probably going to win the game with 8 seconds left. But Andrew Nembhard, the inbounder, threw the ball away, and that was it. And Boston had a chance. Jaylen Brown hits that shot we all know happened in the corner of, when Jaylen Brown hits that corner shot on Pascal Siakam to tie the game up at 117. Indiana did a solid job in overtime, but Boston took over in overtime and they win the game 133 to 128. But I think the disappointment for the Pacers has to come to the fact that, you could have stole a game one. And if you look at, what both teams have done in the playoffs, things I think would have been and looked good for the Pacers, moving forward after a game one win. If you look at game two, Boston has struggled in game twos, in this postseason, even going back to last postseason. I'm trying to think about who they played in the second round last year, but I know in the Eastern Conference Finals, they lost game two against the Miami Heat. They've lost both game twos of their postseason this year against Miami in the first round and against Cleveland in the second round. I'm trying to think about who they played, and I feel like it's like a 3 or 4 game losing streak for Boston in game twos. I believe this is a 4-game game two losing streak for Boston. So you would have thought that you would have thought that Indiana would have had a good chance going into game two with how bad Boston has struggled and have. You played poor defensively on the 3-ball in game twos. Miami had an historical 3-point shooting night in game two of the first round when Miami took down Boston in the first round. Cleveland had a really good shooting night when they took down Boston in game two. So there's just been a really bad shutdown from this Boston Celtics team in game twos in this postseason and even going back to last postseason. So you would have that to think about. But then, after game two, you're going back home in Indiana. Indiana's a place where, at home this year for the Pacers, they've been good in the regular season, but in the postseason are 5-1. Now, Boston, also to think about Boston, they've done a really good job on the road this postseason as they're 4-0 on the road this postseason, but Indiana's been really good at home. So if you would have stole a game one win, you're looking at the next 3 games. Game two, where Boston has struggled in game twos in the last 2 playoffs. And then you have going to back to Indiana, where Indiana is unbelievable at home, play different basketball at home. They're 5-1 in the postseason at home, and we're great in the regular season at home. So I feel like this game one win would have been huge for Indiana. But I feel like with the way I saw them play in this game last night, with how good they were, that I still feel like they have a shot in this game because Boston has struggled in game twos. They're really good at home. So the way I saw them fight in game one, I think that it's, they definitely have a shot. but it's going to take a lot more to beat this Boston Celtics team. And I think if you look at the difference of this upcoming game 2 that will be tomorrow between Boston and Indiana, which will be huge for Indiana. You don't want to go down 2-0 against this amazing Celtics team. But if you look at it, this is how I feel about it. I feel like Boston has a great chance that in the game 2 losing streak that they have. Because let's look at what has happened before in these game 2 home losses that they've been having recently, the Boston Celtics. If you look at the Miami series, the first round series, they killed Miami in the first round. Then the next game, they got killed. Let's go to the Cleveland series. They killed Cleveland in the game 1. Blew out Cleveland in game 1. Now next game, they got killed. They got blown out. Same thing. Last two series, they have just kicked the other team's butt, and then the reverse has happened. This is not the case in this game. Boston had to fight. They had to fight. So just my theory, maybe Boston in the other previous series have potentially, after a game 1 blowout, potentially felt a little bit easy going into game 2 after having such a great performance in game 1. That's not the case here. Yes, they had a good game 1 against Indiana, but they had to fight for it, and they were seconds away from losing. If it wasn't for stupid turnovers by Andrew Nembhard and Pascal Siakam, this game would have belonged to the Indiana Pacers. So I feel like Boston might come out with a different energy going into game 2 than they have had in the past against Miami and Cleveland, and going back to last year against Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals. And whoever they played in the second round, I don't know why I can't remember who they played in the second round last year. It was Philadelphia. It was Philadelphia who they played in the second round last year. I believe they did lose game 2 to Philadelphia. No, I'm trying to remember. I don't think they lost game 2 of that series. I think they lost game 1 and won game 2, but I'm not 100% sure. I know they played Philadelphia. I know it went to game 7 series, but I'm not. Maybe they did lose game 2. Actually, I think they probably did, but I can't remember if it was game 1 or game 2 they lost. But yeah, so it was Philadelphia they played in the second round, but they came out. I just feel like Boston's going to come out with a different energy in game 2 than they have had against Cleveland or Miami this postseason. But that's the way I feel. And Indiana has actually struggled on the road this postseason. Did a solid job in Milwaukee. Up until game 7, we're not able to win in New York. We're 1-3 in that New York series. 0-1 against Boston this year. So this postseason I believe this postseason they're like 3-5 on the road, which is not terrible, especially when you're playing against great teams like the Celtics, the Bucks, and the Knicks. Those are all top 3 seeds, but they have struggled on the road. And I feel like yesterday was actually, even despite this game 7 win against New York, I feel like yesterday was the best we've seen them play on the road against this Boston team. But I thought they showed a lot of fight. I mean, Siakam had 24, Halliburton had 25 and 10. All their starters were in double figures. Nembhard had 12 and 7. Turner had 23 and 10 with 4 and 2 blocks. Aaron Nesmith had 14 points with 6 rebounds and 2 steals, former Boston Celtic. And 15 points for Obi Toppin off the bench, 13 for TJ McConnell. Those two guys have been amazing this postseason coming off this bench for Indiana, my bad. And yeah, they did a great job. The same guys that have been performing all postseason for them have, showed up again. But, Boston guys were just better. 36 for Tatum with 12 rebounds and 3 steals, 4 assists, 15 for Al Horford, 3 blocks and 6 rebounds, shot 5 for 15, 28 for Drew Holiday. He was a big factor in this game. I thought defensively he showed what he showed in that in the Milwaukee Bucks championship run. How big Drew Holiday was for that team defensively. I know he showed it this postseason already, but I feel like he showed it more with 3 steals and great defense in that in that game. There was a big play against Tyrese Halliburton where Tyrese Halliburton lost the ball out of bounds, and Celtics got the ball back, and that was in overtime, which was a big play for the Boston Celtics. So, Drew Holiday was great offensively, and he was great defensively. I feel like without him, Boston probably loses this game. 28 points, 8 assists, 7 rebounds. 10 for 16, 4 for 8 from 3. This was his best game of the postseason with 3 steals as well. 26 points for Jaylen Brown, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 10 for 20, 15 for Derek White with 9 assists and 6 rebounds, and then only 13 bench points. That's going to be the killer for Boston in this series, is their bench getting outnumbered by Indiana. I mean, Indiana had one player who had the same amount of points that this whole bench of Boston had. Pritchard, Cornette, and Hauser combined for 13 bench points. TJ McConnell had that himself. And then they had another 17 bench points between Ben Shepherd and Obi Toppin. So this bench is overpowered for Indiana, and that's where they're gonna get really that's where Boston's really gonna get killed in this series. But yeah, 8 points for Pritchard, 5 for Cornette, and that was it for the scoring of this basketball game. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and peace out.